I was working evenings or nights, walked into a room, and the senator, who was psychiatrically unstable, was trying to take his life. He was on the floor trying to put a chair leg down his throat.
Oh my God. Hey guys, welcome to Nurse Talk, the podcast where we talk all things nursing. I'm your host, Mia, and today I have a very special guest, Miss Candace. How are you doing today?
Great.
Awesome. So I want to start at the very beginning and ask you, what made you get into nursing?
I really wanted to be a social worker. And then I went to college to be a music therapist because I was played piano from the time I was 5 until I went to college. I fell in love with my college boyfriend, dropped out after 1 year, and worked at various jobs until I got pregnant. We got married, and 2 children later, I was then 30 and divorced. So I knew I had to support the children. So nursing was a higher paying job, and social work needed a master's degree. And as a matter of fact, music therapy needed a master's degree. So nursing was a easier way. I went to the school that was an articulated program in those days. I went for 2 years, got the AD and sat for boards, became an RN, but then I didn't stop to work. I went ahead and got my BSN in 3 semesters. And when I got out of school, there was no jobs for a single woman with two small children. My kids were they were preschool. So there were no day jobs, put it that way. And I don't know how the job market is now, but back in those days, you had to work the night shift, you had to work the undesirable hours and weekends and the whole thing. So the only 9 to 5 Monday through Friday job was the visiting nurses. Mm-hmm. So I did get a job there, but the pay was so low, I couldn't manage. It was just terribly low. I worked there for 6 months, realized I wasn't going to get ahead there. And I don't remember the circumstances, but I got in touch with a recruiter for the military, was accepted into the Naval Nurse Corps as an officer. So I enrolled in the Navy.
What was your experience like working at the Naval Hospital?
It was unique. It was you had to. The needs of the Navy came first and foremost. But, and so whatever the need was on any given day, you had to do it. It was difficult for me. I loved it. I liked it, and I liked the experience of it, except they didn't take into consideration a single parent with small children. Daycare was a constant problem because it required that the nurses work 2 weeks of days, then a week of evenings, and then a week of nights. That required different babysitters, and it was terrible for me that way. But being at Bethesda was a very interesting experience. We not only took care of active duty soldiers, we took care of the congressmen, VIPs that were in Washington at the time. I happened to be working there when Reagan got shot.
Wow.
So that was an experience I remember. I didn't have anything personally to do with him or his care, but the Secret Service were everywhere. And it was the whole atmosphere of the base was, very, very nervous and tense.
I can only imagine.
And then, so one of the things that stand out during that experience was a sad incident where I was working evenings or nights, and walked into a room, and the senator, who was psychiatrically unstable, was trying to take his life. So he was on the floor trying to put a chair leg down his throat.
Oh my God.
So that was traumatic.
Did you walked in on that?
Yeah.
Oh man, having to wrestle that out of his mouth probably.
Yeah. Well, I had to get help,
Oh, absolutely.
And then I had to tell the story a lot of times.
Absolutely. Like any other incident.
But
that must have been terrifying.
Yeah, that was different. And then I took care of the Surgeon General one time. He was in for. I worked the regular med surg ward, and then I worked the neuro ICU. We had some cases there that were very sad. And then another time I took care of the founder of the nuclear, and a very well-known and respected. And when I took care of him, he was an older man, had dementia, but he was very demanding. I remember fighting with him in the middle of the night because he was demanding to see the captain of the base, and he wasn't going to have this, and he wasn't going to have that, and oh my God. So you had to be firm, but you couldn't be mean,
Yes. Trying to keep the balance of like, okay, let's keep this person level-headed, but it's difficult. Some people just want to argue and they want to demand, and there's like, this is out of my hands. I was assigned to you and I have to take care of you, and that's all I can do.
One time I remember I said, we cannot get the captain. This is where the buck stops with me. Mm-hmm. And I says, and I am the one with the needle in your arm.
That's a good response. I like that response.
So the family finally brought a private duty nurse in there to babysit him constantly, because that's what he required.
Oh, yeah, of course. Did you have a preference between working the med surg or the neuro ICU?
Well, they're very different, I like the ICU because it was only like 6 beds and more technical. I liked all the machinery and all the different IVs and equipment, ventilators, all that stuff.
Was your ratio, was it 5 or 6 patients to 1 nurse? What was your ratio on the med-surg unit?
The way it worked there was the RN oversaw the whole side of the ward, but you had enlisted the corpsmen under you, and they were like glorified CNAs.
Okay.
They had gone to school for a few months, and so they knew a lot of things and could do most skills except IVs.
Well, that's awesome. That's kind of similar, I guess, to like a long-term care facility nowadays, where 1 or 2 RNs look over, and then CNAs and all of that kind of run the show. Sounds kind of
You
similar to
had
that.
the RN had to do the medicines, admissions, and discharges.
After your stay in the Navy, you transitioned to the Tampa VA.
Right.
Would you like to share why, or how did that happen?
Well, my term with the Navy, my obligation was 3 years active duty, and so that had come to an end. And the Navy says, well, you can go to another duty station, or you can get out and we'll move you anywhere you want. So I decided, my family lived in Florida, so I decided to move to Tampa and settle here. And then I did look around town, and as far as employment for me, and the VA was the best paying with the best benefits. But it always had this gray reputation. It's like, oh, it's not the best place to get care and blah blah blah. But I was looking out for my family at that point. And plus I had a leg up because I was a veteran. So I got hired there, and I remember I wanted to kind of work at Moffitt, but the pay was $3 or $4 difference an hour, which is a lot.
I still think that the VA has better benefits and pay still to this day, which is amazing. My grandma always tells me, go to the VA, go to the VA. I haven't made that transition yet. I really like where I'm working. So I wanted to ask you how your experience was in the SICU.
Well, I spent 13 years there, and so I have a lot of experiences. I was a staff nurse for quite a few years, and then I was like assistant manager.
Wow.
And then I was the interim manager for a year, because they were looking for a permanent manager.
Did you like managing?
I liked part of it, yeah. It was very challenging. We had 14 beds, 30 RNs. My forte was doing a schedule, and we had 7 different shifts. We had
What?
we did.
Oh, wow.
It was something that the nurses and I came up with, that to cover the unit, because through the years we had to close beds at certain times because we just couldn't keep nurses, and they would leave and then they weren't replaced, and it was a mess. So we said, what can we do to keep nurses? Maybe if they had more of a say in their schedule. So what happened was we developed the 7 shifts were, if you'll bear with me, I'll tell you. It's the regular 3 8-hour shifts.
Okay.
7 to 3, 3 to 11, and 11 to 7. Then we went to 12 hours. There was another set of 12 hours, 4 a.m. to 4 p.m. and 4 p.m. to 4 a.m. And then we had the 7 to 7 12-hour shifts, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. And it's opposite. Trying to cover everything. It was like a puzzle, a big crossword puzzle.
Yeah, that sounds intense. You spent half your time just trying to figure out the schedule.
I always had somebody else helping me, because we would just block it out with a little graph and by hand. There was no computer program or anything to plug into. We did it.
We have it made in the shade now.
So, that was intriguing.
Yeah.
I wanted to institute a self-governance model, but I couldn't get support from the administration.
Did you have times as a manager where you had to step in and do a patient care?
Yes.
Or did you have to sometimes fill in shifts when people didn't show up, or?
Yes, but it was frowned upon by the administration.
Well, who else is going to do it? You're welcome. Oh my goodness. They didn't like that?
No, they didn't like it.
So do you have any like memorable stories that you'd like to share from the SICU?
It was surgical ICU. So I remember this one patient that had there was no, for the open heart patients, they didn't go to recovery or anything. They came straight to us from the operating room. That was the first hour or two was real critical. But anyway, they crashed on a regular basis in one way or another. But this one particular patient, we had to open his chest right there in the unit and pull the chest apart with retractors and anyway, it was late at night, of course.
Yeah.
There was nobody around. And, but I pushed the code button and a lot of students and medical students and interns and stuff were all gawking, but nobody was doing anything. I said, is there anybody on surgery service this month, And so they finally, oh, me, I am,
Yeah.
I said,
Okay, step in. It's your time.
right.
Yeah.
And so that was, that you have to open the chest up, do open heart cardiac massage. Of course, I didn't do that.
Yeah.
But I had to push all the drugs and everything and try to keep the poor guy alive. And sometimes they made it and sometimes they didn't. So, but yeah, we had to get them back to the operating room because they were bleeding or something,
Oh, yeah.
Something caused all that. So, and it wasn't on the same floor. We had to pack this patient up with 3 million IVs, a ventilator and everything, down in a little elevator down to the second floor and push them down this hallway into the operating room.
That sounds like the adrenaline rush of the century.
So that was always a mess.
Did you ever have times where your adrenaline was so high that you had to cry after, or like had the shakes, or something was just so intense?
I remember I wasn't expressive that way. I felt all those emotions, but inside, I felt I couldn't. I didn't want to cry. I wanted to cry,
Yeah.
but I felt like this is not my relative.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna cry.
Yeah. I feel like also the culture in nursing is you don't want to cry. You don't want to, seem weak and, it's on to the next, really.
But I felt that all of those emotions inside, and I think many of us did.
You worked alongside my grandma, which is how I met you, of course.
Yes.
And you worked alongside in the SICU, correct?
Yes.
All right. Would you like to share any stories about that?
Oh, yes. Your grandmother was one of the most dynamic nurses. She was a real role model for me. And vividly remember we had this guy suffer cardiac arrest, and your grandmother was straddled on his around on his stomach, pounding so hard
Oh my goodness.
with CPR, and I don't remember the outcome, but I remember the code team finally arrived and they said, "All right, just stop that for a minute."
They're like, we got to do some other things. Wow.
So, but
I wish I
yeah,
could see that. I wish I could just look at how she was.
Oh, she was really dynamic, and she was so smart. Was going to graduate school most of the time. I knew her, and we enjoyed each other. every year they had at Christmas time, they had a contest of who has the best Christmas decorations. Okay. Well, you know how crafty she is.
Oh, yeah.
So she organized that each of us would be given this round embroidered cross stitch picture that we all each one cross stitched this beautiful Santa Claus or angel or some other icon of the Christmas season, and all handmade and beautifully stitched. And we hung those up on the bulletin board that you see as soon as you open the doors. Mm-hmm. And we got first prize that year.
I'm not surprised. She's really crafty. Every single Friday growing up, I would go to her house, and she would just show me all these crafts. And still to this day, I know how to sew because of her. If a button falls off, if something tears, I can just fix it up really easy because she was always showing me the crafts and all that. I'm actually trying to get her on the podcast too. So if you can,
good.
If you can tell her to come on here. So do you want to tell me about your articles?
Yeah. So I don't remember what sparked us to write this, but she and I sat down and wanted to explore the emotional balance of being a nurse in ICU with so much death and so much acute illness and families, and it takes a toll on a person,
Yes,
know?
it does.
And
It does.
so, and you had to, your patient dies or is dying, and then you got to care for another person that's recovering and going to be going home soon. So it's a constant mind thing. But it's called the Codependence, a Nursing Issue. And it was published in the last issue that this magazine was published. After this issue, they stopped publishing it. So we were lucky to get that. But we worked on it quite a while, made our own model, and we explored the psychological and emotional turmoil of being in this constant crisis. I'm not saying every day was a horrible crisis, a horrible shift that terrible things happened. No, but if you had your fair share of those.
Absolutely.
And so, and you had to wake up the next day and go back and do it again. So what you said earlier about showing your emotions, did you ever feel like crying? Yeah, I did feel like crying, but I didn't cry. I kept it all in. And was one of my personal demons, because there was no outlet. There was no support group. There was no grief counseling. There was no, gee, I understand there was no mental health support. I don't know what they have now.
I'm sure that there are some type of outlets, but they're not really in your face. They're not easy to access, at least from what I can tell. And that's really one of the primary reasons I wanted to start this, is because till this day, there isn't really a place where we can all go and go, oh, those emotions are completely normal, and what we do is very difficult. And crying isn't weird. Crying isn't a sign of weakness. It's just, what we have to do to kind of make peace with what we see. Maybe, like you said, maybe not on a daily basis, But there are some shifts that I feel like I could just make a whole like skit about, that it was just so insane and was horrifying. And you get enough of those and you're like, oh my God. So yeah, so just going based off what you said, the imbalance, there's really nowhere to go to kind of even just tell like, is this normal? And really at the end of the day, how to deal with them. And I think a lot of the times it's just talking about it, really just to get it out there. And anyway, so I really like what you said about that and your amazing article there. Do you have any more that you'd like to show us?
These other two articles are about when I worked in home care, which is after 13 years in the SICU, I had had enough.
I bet.
Did not feel supported in the management role. Anything new was stifled. No, don't do that. No, we've always done it this way, or so and so won't like that, Mm-hmm.
So you reverted back to home health because home health was your first job, right?
Right.
So then after, what was that, 16 years or so, you reverted back to it.
I said, well, you know what? I wanted something completely different.
Yeah.
And so I had, for extra money, I was doing home IV stuff through a private agency on the weekends and stuff. I got skilled with that, and so when this opportunity that they had a home, it's called home-based primary care at the VA, it's a team of nurses, doctors, physical therapists, social workers, the whole interdisciplinary team was delivered health care to the veterans at home. So I worked, they were doing a research project on chronic disease. And so I was hired as the nurse for the COPD and CHF. He had to be, in order to get into the study, you had to have 2 hospitalizations for one or the other of those diseases in the past year. And they lived more than 30 miles away.
So you were the nurse that kind of oversaw that whole study?
Well, no, I was the worker bee nurse.
Oh, okay.
That did the everyday stuff.
Oh, cool.
Well, I'm getting ahead of myself. The 30 miles away came when we got these machines, the very first telemedicine machines. That's when the 30 miles came, but the patients for this study wasn't eliminated, wasn't confined to the 30 miles.
What year was that?
This was March 2000.
Wow. I feel like telemedicine, at least, how much it's pushed now, it feels like a newer development. But you were doing that all the way back in the year 2000.
Yeah, but it was funny. All of a sudden, one day they delivered these machines to us, and we didn't really know what to do with them. There was no direction. There was no
instructions.
No instruction, no nothing. So we put them in homes of people that were sick, that were close, but they were just real sick. Mm-hmm. And then it progressed to the research program I was just telling you about, into a formal study, and that at that point you had to be 30 miles away. Well, these machines were unique to, at least to the ones that they even have today, and it went on the landline, and then on the machine it had a stethoscope and a blood pressure monitor and an audio visual, a camera. So then I went back to the hospital, and every week I would call all my patients on I had a similar monitor at the hospital, and I would call the patients at home one by one. Everybody had their day and time, and they knew what was what. And so I gave them a diagram of where to put the stethoscope on their front and where to put it on the back. I had them have a spouse or somebody, a second person, to do it for the lungs. And then, and every week there would be an education piece. One week we would talk about meds. One week we would talk about fluid restriction. Different little topics, just as a thing. And then it was the whole thing of, well, how are you doing? And it gave the person a chance to tell you, well, I had to urinate all night because had to take my Lasix at night because I was busy during the day and I didn't want to be worried about that.
Yeah.
And this kind of thing. So, and I went. It was quite interesting. I had the farthest place I remember going was Okeechobee. I took a machine down there to a man that was really sick.
Wow.
He lived alone.
So afterwards, what was the findings? Was the findings for seeing the potential of telemedicine, or was it, can you tell me about the findings of the...
Well, what we found was the hospitalizations for these patients with this, it's like going to the doctor every week.
Yeah.
It was from week to week. Oh, well, did you try this? And then the very next week you would get a follow up. So it was like an attention thing. You got a lot of attention. So the hospitalizations decreased. We had 17 patients, and prior to the study, combined 288 hospital days.
Wow.
But after the study, 57% decrease, and the hospital admissions days was 164. So from 288 to 164. So we
cut it in half, essentially.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's a really cool study to be a part of.
And then in the very beginning, we displaced the machines wherever locally. We did it locally. And I remember one stands out in my mind is this, the caretaker calls up and the man is kind of flaccid in bed, not acting right, not moving. Anyway, we had one of these machines, and she shot the camera. She positioned the camera in front of him, and I had her do a neuro exam, and show me. Mm-hmm. Well, all I see is, his left side is completely flaccid.
Wow.
I said, you need to, call 911. Okay.
Wow.
So we got him in, and he had a cerebellar stroke.
You saved his life with the telemedicine. Hey.
Well, I felt real good about that because,
that's amazing.
This particular family, and it was pretty common, undereducated, not don't know a lot about human anatomy or anything, mm-hmm. And so they really are dependent on us.
So from home health, you moved into case management.
Right.
How do you feel about case management? How was your experience?
I had 500 patients and under one doctor, and about 10% of that 500 took up 90% of my time.
Oh, yeah. Some of them you can't get a hold of, and then there's like 10 of them that are like calling you every day. Oh my gosh.
I liked that because I had my pile of patients, and I knew them intimately,
Yeah.
as much as they wanted me to, and so it was helped them navigate the system, which was incredibly difficult at times. So they had this silly rule that if you were on, this is again in quite a bit in the past, if you were on a chronic pain regimen that required narcotics, the doctor could only give you a prescription for 30 days at a time. Okay, fine. And then it not only and it wasn't, this was before the electronic stuff. And so the doctor had to write this paper prescription. The patient had to physically come into the hospital to get the paper, take it to the pharmacy, and wait for it to be filled. This went on month after month. And so, you got 30 people on that stuff, it was such a hassle because they wouldn't allow the doctors to order it electronically just because it was a narcotic. And so I remember this. The patients would get very worried that they were going to run out of pills, so they would call me. And I'd have to bug the doctor. Well, if the doctor went on vacation or had an unexpected leave, well, then that was a mess.
Then you were the person that got yelled at, huh?
Yeah, you had to you had to hunt down another doctor that'd be willing to do it,
Which I'm sure is hard because it's a narcotic. So that doesn't sound very fun. How would you say in comparison, bedside to case management? Of course, there's a drastic difference. Now looking back, would you have a preference?
You mean at the bed, in the home, or in
either
the hospital?
One, just doing like the actual like taking blood, doing hands-on things with patients rather than doing more administrative things. Which one do you think you preferred?
Well, when I worked in the geriatric clinic, when I had that case management, I also had to see patients in the clinic. I had to check them in, draw their blood.
Oh wow!
I had to check them in.
And overseeing over 500 patients?
Yeah, I had to do that, but I didn't check in. Not all. I only had to check in my doctor's patients. So
Okay.
There was days that I didn't have to check in patients.
Because I feel like it's very separated now, at least in my experience on several units. Case management does not do any hands-on bedside related anything. Not an assessment, no vitals, no nothing. It's very separated. So that's why I assumed. But I've seen job postings for case management roles, and now that number is cut in half. It's like, you oversee maybe 250 patients. So for you to look over 500 patients and then also have to do some of the bedside tasks, that is nuts. That must have been a handful and a half.
When I decided to retire, when I decided it was time for my minimum time was in, the reason I retired exactly when I did is that they told me one day, they said, "Oh, by the way, we're increasing your doctor's workload to 800." And I said,
Oh my God. I swear the number is like 200 to 250 now.
That's good.
They wanted you to do 800. Mm-hmm. That was going to be my next question, because I feel like some people, at least the nurses that I work alongside, getting to the retirement age, they're kind of going back and forth and, should I wait another 2 years? Should I wait another 5? Or I'm kind of ready now. And I was going to ask you, how did you come to that decision? And that made it really easy, didn't it? 500 to 800?
It wasn't equitable, because the other nurses, they had a lot fewer, and then I had the unfortunate, was a work group I was in at the end, didn't cooperate with each other. Like I would be out sick for two days or 3 days. I get back to work, and there's like 50 voicemails on my phone.
So
no one answered my phone while I was gone.
That's upsetting.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
yeah, I would retire too. Was that, were you at that point ready to retire, and that was just kind of like...
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was ready.
I would be too. You've had a long and amazing career.
Yeah.
You've done all of it. You've done the home health, med surg, ICU. You've done studies. Oh my goodness. And then case management. I always thought that maybe case management would be kind of my end goal, what I wanted to do, just to take a step away from the physicality of bedside. Overall, do you think that you liked the role in terms of like...
In case management?
Mm-hmm.
I liked it. It's almost like you're the person at the department store on the complaint department, Yeah. Because you get the first line complaints about something that happened with VA that you can't do anything about.
Yeah. Do you think that it was a cool learning experience in terms of like, now all of this about, insurance and, equipment at home and, kind of the things you don't see being a bedside nurse, we don't worry about what's happening inside the house. Do you think that, the jump from bedside or, home health or whatever was a huge jump from case management in terms of like knowledge base?
I think it helped me. All that background really helped me because I was in so many homes with all these Hoyer lifts and stuff like that, and the caregivers trying to cope with illness, I mean, I think all that helped me with case management.
Yeah, absolutely. So in closing, I always like to ask, if someone were to be interested in nursing or thinking about becoming a nurse, what would you say?
I'm so glad you asked me that because I was thinking about what I would say for a couple of days now. And my thing that I would like to say is listen to your patients. Really listen. They're not talking about the weather. You need to listen to what they say and take it to heart. They're not talking for the hell of it. They want someone to know what they're saying.
And they want help.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for coming today. Your career has been amazing, and I'm so excited that you came to share your career and all of your stories.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I hadn't thought about many of these things for a long time, so it was good.
Yeah, it's good to reminisce. You've had a career to share, and thank you so much for coming.
You're welcome.
Bye, guys. See you in the next episode.